Lately, I have asked you a number of times about what sort of problems you come up with when you crochet. I have already answered many of those questions on these videos, and now we're continuing. Thank you for writing about the problems you have. At times I wish there was a way to add photos to YouTube comments, because some of the problems really would need a photo. But we are looking at 5 of the problems now, and then in future videos more of them. But before we do, we're going to see what there is inside this here box. So I got this subscription box from Hooks and Needles, and we can open it. First the magazine, we'll look at it more soon. And there's 3 balls of yarn, lovely tweed yarn, 97% merino wool, and the rest viscose. That will be lovely to crochet with. Then there are some other things in here. A crochet hook, 5mm. This is a very interesting shape of a handle. I'm looking forward to trying it out. Suppose it works equally well whichever way you crochet. Then lovely scissors. That's good. I need some. And needles. Oh, it's falling. And then I thought this would just be for the packaging, but actually, let's cut it open. Oh yes, the air goes back to it. Fluffy filling. And then the magazine. Here's the patterns for this month. The patterns with lots of photographs. That's good. So this is the crocheting box, and then you can get the knitting one or an amigurumi one as well. There's even a recipe for cinnamon cookies at the end. Go and check the description. There's a link there and a code that gives you 20% off from your first box when you order one. Let's start with the question that has the shortest answer. The question is that why are we always told to, for instance, chain 3 when we start a new row or round of double crochets or single crochets? Why are we told to chain first? The answer, I would say, is you don't necessarily have to chain first, but you have to use some way so that you start the row at the same height as the main stitches. So the start of a double crochet row has to be the height of a double crochet, or the start of a treble row has to be the height of a treble. You can't start a double crochet row without, in one of the many different ways, first being slightly higher. So chaining 2 or 3 is very common. Then you can use a standing stitch, or you can use stacking stitches, and there are probably other ways as well, but those are the 3 that I would use. But for single crochet you don't necessarily have to. And I have this video that has been very, very popular, where I'm showing how not chaining in the beginning of a single crochet row, you get a smoother edge. Instead of chaining one, you just lift a stitch lightly. You can watch that video. And I'm also linking in the description the other tutorials I mentioned. Then a question that comes up quite regularly in any discussions about crochet or also knitting. And the question is what to do if you have lost the motivation to crochet. The first thing I would say, if crochet is your hobby, not your work, that don't force yourself. What would happen if you stopped crocheting for a month or 6 months or a year? Most likely nothing. So don't force yourself. If you keep thinking, I have to crochet today, I have to crochet today, that's even then more likely that you don't enjoy it. So just stop crocheting altogether. If you are also a knitter, switch over to knitting or any other crafts. Sewing, bead making, felting, anything like that. And again, if you don't feel like any of those, then don't do any of them. Just go out for walks and gym, anything else. And something that can also keep that from happening is that you have enough of variation in what you crochet. For me, it's always important to have several projects on the go at the same time, so I can switch between them. Especially if I'm making something big, like a blanket, that I then also have some smaller things and different types of things, so that you would always keep the interest by using different types of yarns, different size of hooks, and different stitches and so on. If you find that scrolling Instagram or whatever for crochet photos, that gives you more inspiration, then it's good to do that. But if on the contrary that makes you feel anxious that you should be doing those things, then don't go for those apps at all. But more than anything, give yourself time, take a break, and see if your motivation comes back. Another question has to do with slip stitches, finishing rows or rounds with slip stitches. That is it necessary? That is there some other way to do that? Now, I don't know if that meant at the end of a row when you continue that same work or when you are finishing, but there is a way to avoid slip stitches in both of those situations. First, the situation where you are finishing a row with a slip stitch and continuing to crochet, not finishing the item there. And there are a number of similar ways like this of doing it. First, pull up the stitch a little bit longer, then insert the hook from back to front in that stitch where you would put the slip stitch in and leave the yarn underneath it. Then put the stitch there and pull it through. Okay, it's split. And then tighten it so that it's about the right length of a stitch, but don't let it drop. And then insert the hook into that same stitch. Take the yarn through and put the hook back into that stitch you had left there and make a stitch there. And then you just continue. So this way you don't need any slip stitches at all. But if I was finishing it here, if that would be the end of it, what you do, cut the yarn first and then pull it through the last actual stitch and take a needle, and what you do is you like copy a stitch. So insert the needle under both sides of the stitch in the beginning of that round and go through here to make a stitch that looks like a crochet stitch. So that looks very tidy. You can't tell which stitch actually is the last one. And then you just finish off the yarn end. A lighter question here. This doesn't count in the 5 at all, but I wanted to read it. I don't actually have an answer. Here's the question. How can I get my husband to do all the housework and dishes so I can crochet? As I said, I don't have an answer. And I don't know her situation, but I would hope that the husband would do at least half of everything so that she would have time to crochet. The next question has to do with joining crocheted pieces so that the join is invisible from both sides. And the question actually was if there are other ways than the mattress stitch to do that, because she finds that using the mattress stitch, the two pieces don't stay level. I personally don't know another way than the mattress stitch. I just recently made a video about that using granny squares, so this here is what it means. But there is a very simple way to ensure that the pieces stay level. So what the problem can be is that when you have done the stitches and then you pull it, that it goes like this here, that these do not meet. And there is actually a very easy way to make sure that does not happen. I'll just do a little bit here to show what I mean. The important thing is that the needle always passes from one piece to the other in a straight horizontal line, whatever stitches you have. This works in any joining, crochet or knitting, so that it doesn't go sideways like that there, that you don't go zigzagging like that there, but you go straight, 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 and so on. So I'll start here. I'll go from the corner into the first stitch, and then I'll see where I am and the first double crochet on that side. So I need to go in the first double crochet on that side, and then depending on how far I want to jump in here, okay, I'll come out there. So I went under 2 stitches, leave them way out now. And then, so now I'm on the 3rd one, so I'll find that same stitch on that side. And I go in from there, and then I jump on there, and then go Here again. So you see what I mean, the sewn stitches need to go horizontally correctly always. So now if I pull that there, it closed it right there because of the way the stitches were going. Another problem that came up now, and that I have got in video comments at times as well, is that when you are making a circle, that the spot where the new round always starts doesn't stay straight. Instead, it starts to sort of travel, going that way, that way, that way. It happens very easily. I know it sometimes happens to me, and I've been crocheting for decades. One of the things that helps a lot is counting your stitches. If you know how many stitches you are supposed to have on the round, make sure you have that. And then, when you are finishing a round and starting a new one, it's important where you ended and where you started. What happens easily that you make an extra stitch here, but you shouldn't anymore. That is the stitch where the starting chain is in. So you don't put the stitch there, and you don't put the stitch into that starting chain either, but instead into the first actual stitch of that there round. So a slip stitch there. And then you chain one. And now what is very important is that the first stitch goes into that same stitch where you are now, not there, in that same one. Whether it's one or whether you already increase there. And that way you can be sure that it's not starting to move around like that there. So these were the subject for today. Was there something in these that helped you or that you hadn't heard before? I know many of you are very experienced, so there may not have been, but would be nice to know if there was. Till next time.